Welcome to The Debate, part of the Inspiro Bytes anime analysis series. Today, we're diving deep into the ideology of, well, a truly complex antagonist, Pain. He led that infamous organization, the one seeking world peace by essentially forcing shared suffering on everyone.
Right, and the central question we're tackling is pretty stark. Was pain actually right? Could real, lasting peace only be achieved if everyone, everywhere, experienced that same kind of destruction and pain he dished out?
Exactly. And I'll be arguing that Pain's methods, they were extreme, brutal even, but maybe they were a necessary, utilitarian response, something needed to finally break that endless cycle of hatred the big, powerful nations kept perpetuating.
And I'm going to argue that Paine's approach, while definitely born from real tragedy, became this catastrophic corruption of his original goals. He ended up substituting vengeance for anything resembling true justice, and honestly, just guaranteed that the cycle of hatred would continue, just under his terrifying control.
Look, Pain, or Nagato, rather, was a realist. He had to be. Born an orphan in the Hidden Rain village, a place constantly getting torn apart as a battlefield by the five great nations, he saw firsthand how the whole system, the established order, really just thrives on the misery of weaker places. And then the death of his friend Yahiko, that cemented his philosophy. It's pretty bleak. Humans pursue strife, it's in our nature, seemingly. So the only way, he thought, was by inflicting pain of such magnitude, like, leveling the Hidden Leaf village, that he could force these short periods of peace through fear. It sounds harsh, but for him, this collective suffering, it was a kind of dark calculation. Maximize survival for the most people in the long run, even if it meant immense loss right now.
Okay, but that calculation assumes his own trauma didn't just completely derail the whole greater good thing. Paine's history, his parents killed by Leaf Ninja, then losing Yahiko. It feels like that personal pain hijacked his maybe once noble intentions. His later actions, wiping the Hidden Leaf off the map, systematically taking out anyone connected to the old Hidden Rain leadership, doesn't that feel less like a calculated peace strategy and more like, vengeance? Just vengeance dressed up as justice, and you can't build real peace on fear and resentment. It's just not sustainable. Plus, it relies on this really low opinion of people's ability to change, something he himself ironically seemed to retract right at the very end.
I think we need to frame his actions a bit differently, though. Pain's destructive power, it exposed the deep hypocrisy of the great nations, didn't it? Where justice is a shield only for the powerful few. He basically took on the role of a god to force accountability, to make the oppressors, the big villages, finally acknowledge the suffering of places like the Hidden Rain. His incredible power, the six-path technique, the Rinnegan, maybe that overwhelming force was the only thing that could shock the system hard enough to force a real conversation about justice and the actual cost of their endless wars.
But that's the core problem, isn't it? That reliance on his specific immense power, the Rinnegan. True accountability, true peace, it shouldn't just vanish the moment the enforcer does. That peace he created, it was entirely dependent on him, on his chakra, on those eyes. And we saw exactly what happened the moment he used that samsara of heavenly life technique to revive the Hidden Leaf villagers.
Yeah.
The whole fragile structure just, poof, it collapsed instantly. You had others like Toby, immediately making moves to grab his power, those eyes. A piece that's only held together by the threat of one guy's superweapon, that's not ending war like he claimed. It's just pressing pause, a pause button held down by overwhelming force.
Okay, fragile structure, maybe, but we still have to talk about the morality of his final act. He chose to trade his own life, the very life force sustaining that power, that fragile peace doctrine you mentioned, for the lives of his enemies in the Hidden Leaf. That death, wasn't that the ultimate utilitarian sacrifice? He maximized the highest good, which is survival, for hundreds of people by giving up his own existence. It feels like even in death, he was still operating on that principle of the greater good. And his final words to Naruto, they weren't an apology. They were a warning, a caution about the harsh reality of that cycle of hatred, a reality he knew all too well. He didn't abandon his philosophy. He enacted its ultimate consequence.
I strongly disagree there. I see that final act completely differently. Pain choosing to use his life force to revive the people he killed, that to me shows he recognized the fundamental failure of his fear doctrine. He regretted it. He literally calls himself an almost complete failure. And then he does what? He puts his faith in Naruto's path, the idealistic, maybe naive path he'd spent his whole life arguing against. He realized, I think, that the temporary peace he bought with violence just added another layer of resentment to the cycle. The only way to truly break it wasn't more force, but something like radical self-sacrifice and actually believing in a different, maybe harder path.
So, summarizing my side, Pain operated from this grimly realistic belief that peace, real peace in their world, required force. It required mutual suffering, largely because the powerful nations consistently failed to accept responsibility for the pain they caused.
And yet, as I see it, his final selfless action proves that even he eventually recognized his strategy of vengeance and fear couldn't break the cycle, it could only pause it. It really underscores that the means we choose can corrupt even the purest intentions, the most understandable goals.
It definitely illuminates that tragic tension, doesn't it? The clash between the harsh realism born from Pain's suffering and the maybe essential need to hold on to hope, even if it seems idealistic. Did he prove fear works, or did he prove its ultimate moral bankruptcy?
That's the question we leave with you.
This has been the debate. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the philosophy of power, pain, and peace in anime, definitely hit that like button and subscribe to the Inspire Bytes channel. We do more breakdowns and debates like this all the time.
Let us know what you think in the comments. Was Pain right? We'd love to hear your take.